Welcome to AI Truth Serum, your weekly antidote to the hype and doom of AI. I'm your host, Greg Shove, 7-time founder and CEO of Section AI. Yes, another AI startup. Welcome to the New Year's Eve episode of our podcast. Nothing besides the Trump administration has created more bullshit in 2026 than AI. We've been flooded with noise, predictions, hype, gloom, breathless product announcement. You name it, we've heard it. Talks of course, the bubble and when it's going to burst. So to cut through all that bullshit, I created AI in 2026, myths, truths, and one lie. I presented this to a few thousand of my closest friends, and we're repurposing that presentation for this podcast as we end the year and look forward to 2026 and even more AI bullshit. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome. My name is Greg Shove. I'd rather be surfing on Kauai with my wife right now, but this moment is too exciting or scary, depending on your point of view, to stand on the sidelines, especially when we have a president more concerned about his ballroom than federal regulation of AI. So my mission is to support my adult children. I have 3 adult children and 10 million other people to thrive in the age of AI. This is the moment of greatest disruption or leverage in the history of knowledge work, and all that anyone can talk about is when the AI bubble will burst. Today's agenda: myths, I don't want you to get distracted. Truths, I want you to pay attention. And the one lie, I want you to reconsider. Myth number 1, LLM capabilities are flatlining. That's been the narrative all year, that these large language models are eking out only modest performance gains, and that we're coming to the end of this era of AI from a technical perspective. Well, actually, maybe not. Google released Gemini 3. It scores very well on almost every or all technical benchmarks when compared to other models, including ChatGPT 5.1. The scaling wall, at least for now, was not a wall, more like a mirage. This is Oriol Vinyals. He's the VP of Research at Gemini. He's obviously bullish. You would expect that. We don't seem to be hitting a wall, not anytime soon. And then, of course, 7 days later, Anthropic releases Claude Opus 4.5, another really performant model, and we have new leaders on the board. The good news is the humans are still top of the leaderboard, but we have new leaders. I don't think we've run into scaling law walls yet, and we have not maxed out the performance and cognitive capabilities of the current generation of technology. And meanwhile, no doubt in part in reaction to the price of Chinese tokens, of Chinese AI, Anthropic, as one example, slashed inference costs by 67% on this new model, this more performant model. We're getting more AI at less cost. Yes, LLMs still hallucinate, but imperfect AI will still outrun the old way of working, no doubt. And according to Ilya Sutskever this week, who was a co-founder of OpenAI and is now building his own AI company, he thinks we probably need 1 or 2 more AI breakthroughs if we're going to get to AGI, whatever the hell AGI is. But it's clear in the past couple of weeks, we have a lot of room to run with this current approach to cognitive AI. So it's time not to wait for the next thing, but to deploy what we have. Myth number 2. Okay, myth number 2, AI is only good for vibe coding. I often hear this is a myth. The SWE bench leaderboard is all about completion of engineering tasks. Look at what's happened in 7 months in terms of the capabilities of these models. AI is writing more code than ever before, and code that is accepted. Of course, makes sense. Youngs are getting more value than olds from coding copilots. January 25 case study, almost a year old now. ZoomInfo, 400 developers using, again, AI to co-code with them. 72% satisfaction rate amongst those developers working at ZoomInfo. For some engineering leads, I think that they're sort of laying down the law, if you will. There'll be no room on some teams, not all, but there'll be no room on some teams for human-only developers. My point of view, software engineers are the canaries in the coal mine. And in many, but not all situations, they now have superpowers. If you don't have software engineers working at your company, it's likely then your canaries in the coal mine are in marketing or sales or legal, other language-intensive functions. Go find those people. learn from them. They are showing us how to work with AI. Myth number 3, there's not much enterprise AI ROI. We've heard this all year. We know we love AI. We know consumers love AI. This is just GPT's a monthly active usage number, probably hitting 1 billion sometime by the end of this year or early next. Looks like to me we're at about 1.5 billion, maybe 2 billion altogether, all platforms. Some are very casual and very light. Obviously, some are very heavy, but we love AI as consumers, not so much at work. This is recent and it seems accurate data. Having said that, I've seen other recent and seemingly accurate data that shows higher levels of adoption. What I'll say from Section's perspective, and we have over 100 enterprise clients, is that this feels right to us for many of our clients who are about 1 year into their AI deployments and transformation, 10 to 20% in terms of levels of adoption. And I would define that as active usage, at least monthly, if not weekly. Of course, others might say it needs to be daily. But again, this directionally feels right to me. Depends on the organization, depends on the industry, depends on the country, depends on the function inside the organization. It's clearly a struggle to get people to adopt AI inside of our organizations, but those early adopters experience a lot of upside. This is over a year old data now from BCG in terms of the quality and speed of work and the time saved from consultants. This is more recent research. This was a panel of over 3,000 knowledge workers across industry and across company size as well, but in employed knowledge workers getting a lot of benefit, active AI users, and they were reporting to the London School of Economics 7.5 hours saved per week, about 20% of their time. And of course, we know this. They're not waiting for approval. These employees are taking the risk, if you will, using personal AI or shadow AI, we sometimes call it, at work to get those kinds of gains. They're getting those kinds of gains because they want the time, and they want the time not to work more. They want the time to walk the dog or make dinner for the kids or take a yoga class. This is what happened the last time we got time back, when after the pandemic ended and we were commuting less. For those who were remote workers, some of us, a small number of us, worked harder. The rest of us used that time to do other stuff. Our workday ended around noon on Friday, not 4 o'clock on Friday. I would argue with AI, our workday's ending Thursday at 5 o'clock for a lot of people. I think it's naive for executives to think that a lot of employees who are finding a way to get this benefit from AI, sometimes even when you don't approve it and don't provide or pay for the tools, that they're going to give you that time back. Why should they? They're going to use that time for themselves. Sure, a small number of them might, because they're so ambitious. They want the promotion. They want the pay increase. They might take that time and invest it in your activities as the leader or CEO. But I think the reality right now is there's lots of ROI in enterprise AI, and the employee, that early adopter, is keeping it for themselves. And again, this is not surprising. I think we'd be naive to think that anything else was happening, particularly when we've been scaring these employees that AI is going to take their job and that we're going to lay them off. So at some point, obviously, CEOs will want the productivity gains for the organization. That's going to take a while. It will take redesigning workflows and redesigning teams. It will take, quite frankly, leaders coming up with more interesting work to do, more valuable work, more strategically relevant work, work that improves the economic outcome or prospects of the employee and the company. So as a manager, if you're thinking about optimizing with AI, great, do that and gain those 7.5 hours back for your team members. But at the same time, you own a responsibility to figure out what to do with that time, and in a more valuable way for both your team and the individual working on your team. So these AI early adopters are not slackers. And whether it's 5% in some organizations or 25% in others, I think that is sort of the range. I think a lot of organizations closer to 5%, they're not slackers. They're probably keeping a lot of those productivity gains for themselves, and they should, but they're not slackers. Find them and make them, meaning encourage them, reward them, coach them to become your AI champions. This is the group of people. If you intend to transform a larger percentage of your organization, you will need these people. You cannot do this alone. They're not slackers. Myth number 4, AI is coming for all of our jobs. We've been hearing this for 3 years. Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, is convinced this is going to happen, but he never says when. Dario has been saying this for 2 years. I think the most outspoken, some think the most honest. And I think his point of view is he's doing this sort of as a public service to warn us, to warn policymakers and governments and ourselves that this could happen. Also feels like to me these guys suggest this is going to happen and don't offer any solutions whatsoever. And of course, I think others are just AI washing job cuts and corporate layoffs, like at Amazon. When you see these low levels of AI adoption, then why is AI causing all these layoffs? It's not. This is corporate bloat. This is overhiring. This is still a hangover from hiring too many people from 2 or 3 years ago. This is just CEOs wanting to be more efficient and blaming AI. I'm not saying there aren't job losses because of AI in certain teams and in certain functions. There are, and we do know that certain roles are coming under real pressure, both from a wage perspective and in terms of the amount of employment available in some of these roles. Again, it's not consistent, though, across the economy. And we do have this important Stanford study from this summer, a really significant effort looking at over 300,000 ADP payroll records, trying to understand the impact of AI in organizations that are more AI forward and more AI adopted, what was happening to hiring. And from this data, it was clear there was less demand for younger employees for both customer service and for software engineering, for software development. Interestingly, not for older or more experienced employees. So, of course, the headline takeaway here was that AI is hurting entry-level jobs. That might be the case. I think it's too early to tell. We have a funky economy right now with a lot going on inside of it, a lot of chaos. So some of this might be AI, some of this might be tariffs. I would suggest that so far we've been more successful in terms of leadership at scaring our people and our employees and actually preparing them for what's about to happen. Bottom line, from my perspective, and I spend Monday to Thursday sort of in corporate America or global corporate, because I travel a lot as well, both to Europe and other parts of the world these days. Every CEO I know, but especially in the United States, every CEO that I know wants to grow 25% every year. They think they can grow at 25% every year for the next 5 years and keep headcount flat. That's what CEOs are boasting about and telling investors. I was at an investor conference 2 weeks ago in San Francisco. That's what I heard from corporate executives, that they expect to be able to do this, and they expect that AI will be one of the ways that can help make that happen. AI work slop is a problem. Starting to hear more about this and now starting to get research about work slop, low quality AI generated busy work, people outsourcing work, not vetting it, not adding value to it, and then dumping it back into their work product and into their teams, and that we are starting to feel the effect of this in terms of the rest of the team, coworkers, and so on. And for sure, I've seen some work slop at Section in the last 11 months. And as you would imagine, we have zero tolerance for it. It doesn't happen very often. When it does, we call it out and that stops. But the reality is, this has always been the case when we introduce new productivity tools, right? You remember, we banned social media in our companies. We banned personal phones. We complained about email and the CCC and BCC capabilities of email that flooded our inboxes. This has always happened. No doubt, we will all need AI-free hours, maybe even AI-free days, to do real deep work and to avoid lazy cognitive dependence. We'll need this. It is too easy to outsource to AI. But this idea of work slop being a big issue that we need to address, it's just noise. Do not worry about it. Myth number 6, we are in a technology race, an AI technology race with China. Our investment continues to dwarf other countries. Of course, it's hard to track investment in China, but what's been reported, US investment continues to dwarf. We're still leading, but the leaderboard, the top 10 models, pretty evenly split now. That's been a big change, 2025 versus 2024. But Chinese models are really showing better value in this moment, more intelligence for a lower price. But I don't think that's the race we should be worried about. It's one. I think this is the other race. It's the more important race, which is China's willingness and readiness to actually adopt and deploy AI into their society, into their organizations and companies, much higher currently than in the United States. I think the race is all about adoption and integration. Beijing School District has mandated 8 hours of AI training per year. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it starts at the age of 6. China has a master plan called AI Plus to become an AI native society by 2035, including what's been reported about 13. We are trying for sure. And every AI company is making efforts and investments to support school systems, both at the high school and college level, and to support teachers. And it's appreciated. But I think this is a race that we are not winning currently. We are not a centrally planned economy, obviously. What that means for all of us is you own your own AI fluency. It's not going to come from anywhere else. It's certainly not coming from the federal government or currently any kind of state government, meaning the investments are not there yet, but the technologies are. We own our own fluency. We own our own team's fluency and our own organization's fluency. Truth number one, the real AI disruption hasn't even started. There was a time when Jeff Bezos was a pretty smart guy, like really, good entrepreneur, right? Now he's sort of a cartoon character. He's sort of a mashup of Dwayne Johnson, Mark Zuckerberg, with a little bit of George Clooney thrown in. But he did say once and often, your margin is my opportunity. And I think this is how we should think about how AI could disrupt our business models, not just our product and service offerings. The line between what software that helps and software that works is blurring very quickly. And when you think about market size, the market size for enterprise B2B software, enterprise SaaS is about 230 billion. The knowledge worker wage economy, if you will, is over 5 trillion. So clearly it's a much bigger TAM if you thought about that as an addressable market. And obviously some people do. I think about this through the lens of Harvey AI, for example, very fast growing AI for lawyers. Is it a very expensive seat license? And because Harvey is not cheap. It's around $1,200 per lawyer to use Harvey, depending on what packaging capabilities you pay for. And I think it rises as much as $2,000. A lot more than a typical, obviously, GPT license or Anthropic license. So is it a very expensive seat license? Is it sort of an AI agent? And it's a lot cheaper than a corporate lawyer? Frankly, I think what it really is a legal services firm hiding in plain sight. I think that law firms are inviting in to their firms their future competitor, and they'll regret it in 10 years. When you think about customer service, Sierra AI, another hot, very fast-growing AI startup. CEO is Brett Taylor. He's on the board of OpenAI, used to work at Salesforce. Sierra is pricing customer service software by resolved tickets, not by seats. And they have just passed last 12, 16 months, hundreds of millions of conversations, both voice and chat. In fact, voice has overtaken text chat in terms of volume. It looks like they don't publish a price list. All the pricing's bespoke, if you will, for their enterprise clients. It looks like, though, as far as we can tell, it's about $2.50 per resolution for the client, for the customer, and that Sierra eats the cost if there's no resolution. That's pretty great pricing if you're the customer. I think we should all be assuming, again, it will happen at different paces or times. Your clients are going to want some of your assumed margin expansion when you deploy AI. This is already happening in the services business, certainly in the agency and kind of media services businesses. Large clients are beginning to pre-negotiate in multi-year contracts discounts each year because they're making the assumption that their vendor, their provider, their agency will deploy AI successfully and gain productivity gains and expand margins, and your clients want some of those margins. Or in some sectors, in some industries, I think clients will move faster to wanting outcome-based pricing. They're going to want to pay for success. We're just getting started. My point of view is AI business model disruption is a game of Mexican standoff when you think about it. It's between you, your competitors, and your client. I think you need to be ready to break the standoff. You don't have to do it today. It's very hard to disrupt ourselves, your own business model. Hard, scary, and you may not want to do it yet, but I think you need to be ready, because if someone moves, one of the other two parties moves, one of your competitors or your clients, I think you have to be able to react. Truth number two, you don't need more AI consultants. CEOs are saying AI is going to be transformative. 47% say that you're going to use AI to help reinvent your business, drive significant employee productivity. 47% are talking about productivity gains and reinvention, what I call cut and create, what McKinsey charges $1 million for and calls efficiency and growth, right? Use AI to cut, become more efficient, use AI to grow, reinvent, transform, find new revenue in new markets. CEOs are saying they want both and they expect both from AI, but you don't even know what's going on in your own organizations. This is our survey just completed. We're about to publish the results in early January. 5,000 knowledge workers, US, UK, Canada, from large organizations. When we surveyed CEOs, 57% said that their organization had widespread AI adoption, and only 20% of ICs would actually confirm that. Real disconnect between what executives think. This is not surprising, right? Especially when it comes to these moments. CEOs have talked about it, and therefore they think it's going to happen. Real disconnect, though. And in 50% of people we surveyed, executives we surveyed, you haven't even deployed good AI yet to everyone in the organization. Yet you have these high expectations. What are you doing? You're hiring consultants. This is a growth market. AI consulting are basically transferring as much as $6 billion this year to Accenture to do this work for you. I don't think you need more consultants. You need more AI-first employees. AI in the job title or in the skills of someone on LinkedIn is a crude measure, but it's a decent measure today to get a sense of how AI forward or how could a committed an organization is. This is what we need organizations to do, is start to hire and train people to be able to manage this transition and transformation. You need your own world-class full-time AI SWAT team. And frankly, I needed 2025 to learn this as well, meaning I was hiring consultants. So I'm guilty as charged. I was hiring independent AI consultants because everyone was too busy to accelerate our own adoption of AI internally at Section. And we are a very AI forward company, as you can imagine. Everybody uses AI every day. I wanted to go further and faster. And I used consultants and it did not work. So yes, we are hiring. We have an open job rec for a head of AI at Section. This work is too important for consultants. It's for the best and brightest in your organization. Find them, enlist them, pay them more than what you pay them now. You'll probably have to. Maybe not on day one, but certainly in 12 months. This is for the best and brightest. This is too important to outsource to a bunch of consultants who haven't done it themselves. Truth number three, the emergence of super companies. I believe we're entering an era, the next 10 years, in which hundreds of super companies, thousands potentially, will be built. Very valuable companies. They are different on the inside. They are a mix of super leaders, super employees, and agents, and a lot of AI with a big cable going out the back and a big bill to the AI companies. They grow fast and are people efficient. I intend to be a super company at Section. Our targets put us at about $100 million in revenue in 3 years. And I'll do that with in the current plan, 150 less employees than my last company, which got to $100 million in revenue with over 400 employees. And we'll do that at Section, I think, probably with under 250 or under 200 employees. That's our current plan. We'll do it in half the number of years in terms of growth. Here's what's different about this company, Section. Our second biggest expense after people will be inference. I'm rounding the numbers, I admit. This is basically our internal plan for Section the next 3 years, growing from 35 million next year to 100 million in 2028. We'll grow headcount, obviously, but look at our inference cost. This will be our second biggest expense. We'll spend more on inference than all of our other software combined, obviously. We'll spend more on people. Feels like to me revenue per employee is last year's metric, what we've been using to measure, particularly in SaaS and in technology businesses. We've been using that as a measure of productivity, as a measure of sort of efficiency. I'm not sure what the new metric is. I don't think revenue per employee is the metric. Super companies will suck all the oxygen out of the room over the next decade. They're beginning to do it today as it relates to venture capital. We can see that, right? But capital, talent, and I think eventually customers, they will want to migrate to super companies. Here's the lie. The AI bubble will burst and we don't have to worry about this anymore. I think a lot of people are hoping this happens and are expecting that this will happen, and to some extent are hoping it will happen because they won't have to deal with AI in their organizations or in their businesses. I don't think there's one bubble, there's three. There's a funding bubble. We have funded a lot of companies with outsized valuations and huge amounts of capital, not just the large AI companies, but thousands, over 5,800 so far year to date, AI startups. This is AI funding. About half of capital is going into startups. And there's, as I said, now almost 10,000 of them. Most will fail. That's always what happens. This is an extraordinary amount of new companies and capital, but most of these will fail, get acquired, disappear, or just be small businesses. We should expect that to happen. And we should expect this bubble to burst and sort of reset, likely in the next 12 to 18 months. Bubble number two is the data center build out. We are building a lot of capacity, a lot of compute capacity, or trying to. There's a long lag time, as you know, with data centers. It looks like the investment is anywhere from 3 trillion to 8 trillion. Let's assume it's 3 trillion, about 124 gigawatts, or 80 to 124 gigawatts. That'll power New York and 20 other cities. I'd be shocked if the people making these decisions are getting their forecasts right. So I would expect this bubble also to burst sometime in the next 12 to 24 months, meaning it'll be clear that we're building ahead of demand, particularly enterprise demand. The third bubble is a capabilities bubble, and I don't think it's going to burst. Basically, think about myth number one. I think there's currently no end in sight to the performance of these models and their capabilities. As I said, there's probably some breakthroughs we need to get to AGI, but I don't really care about AGI. I don't think any of us should care about AGI in this moment. We should care about making our organizations more capable and able to compete over the next 5 or 10 years. So I don't think this bubble is going to burst anytime soon. We do need a lot of revenue, and the industry, OpenAI, Anthropic, and others are signing up to turn all that compute into revenue, and we'll see if they can do that, and we'll see if they can do that with margin. Obviously, it's not just revenue, they need margin to justify this build out. But I don't think this AI genie is going back in the bottle in terms of AI capabilities. So I think smart operators will not get distracted when these first two bubbles burst, which I believe they will in the next 12 to 24 months. I think smart operators will realize that third bubble is not bursting. These capabilities are getting better. My guess is prices will continue to come down on inference. I think the way to think about that is that's a gift for us if you want to build with AI and deploy AI to become more efficient, to become a super company. I think in the short term, inference costs continue to come down in part because of pressure from China. So I think smart operators will not get distracted by these first two bubbles bursting, and they'll keep building. Let's review the myths. LM capabilities are flatlining. AI is only good for vibe coding. There's not much enterprise AI ROI. I think there's lots. The employees mostly are keeping it. Again, it's a small number of employees that have figured this out, but they're seeing the gains. And as we should expect, they should keep it, at least for now. AI is coming for all of our jobs. The data doesn't yet say that. There's certainly pressure in industries and certain roles in certain countries, for sure. But we're not seeing yet. All the dire predictions aren't yet showing up in the data. AI work slop is a problem. It's not. It's just noise, although we are going to be responsible for our own cognitive performance, and we're going to have to be careful or watchful about not outsourcing too much to AI and becoming cognitively lazy. And that finally we're in a technology race with China. We are. I do think that we're actually in an adoption and sort of integration race as well with China. In terms of truths, I don't think the real disruption started, meaning product and innovation. So the innovation comes first. We build new products and services. Incumbents can usually respond. For sure, they're slower and they're not native, so it takes them more money and time. But they're incumbents. They've got customers, they've got distribution, they've got large organizations, they've got muscle. But what really hurts incumbents is business model innovation. So not every AI company is going to innovate on the business model. But when you combine product or service innovation, a better mousetrap, with a better business model, one that clients prefer, I think that's when the disruption gets really serious. That's when incumbents look like they're moving with concrete feet, right? They just can't react because they have to disrupt their own revenue streams. That is much harder than disrupting their product roadmap. They can almost all do that. It's very hard to disrupt the income statement. So I think when we start to see this disruption, things get real. I don't think you need more AI consultants. I think you have to build these capabilities internally, And you have to do that with your best and your brightest and start with your early adopters. They're not slackers. They're your future champions, and maybe they're your future head of AI. And I do think we're seeing the emergence of super companies. I understand we're really early here. And in one respect, OpenAI looks like a super company or a future super company. In other respects, it looks like it's nowhere close in terms of actually generating positive gross margin. We're a long way from seeing if these AI companies can become super companies, because super companies are profitable over time. They're not just meteors, right? They're meteors that sustain over time. And the lie is that this bubble will burst and we won't have to worry about this anymore. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think AI's capabilities are going to continue to improve. And of course, we all heard about Sam Altman's Code Red to bring forward releases of OpenAI's models in order to meet the competitive threat from Anthropic and from Google and presumably from others. So I don't think that part of the bubble is bursting anytime soon. I've got some principles or some advice to help us all thrive. My point of view is deploy perfect AI. It beats our old way of working every time. Learn from your engineers if they're your canaries. If you don't have a lot of engineers in your organization, then learn from those early adopters or learn from the one function that is the most AI adopted. Again, it's typically language intensive. Our experience with our clients, it's often marketing, it's often sales. Sometimes it's sort of, head office, but typically the go-to-market teams, as an example. Find and turn your early adopters into champions, celebrate them, and reward them for doing this. Be ready for zero headcount growth. It will be enabled in part by AI, but it's coming from CEOs. This is what they think is the way to build more valuable companies. Don't stress over work slump. It's a distraction. Own your own fluency, personal fluency in terms of AI and your families, your kids. Don't outsource this to schools. As a parent, I think you're responsible. We talk to our kids about drugs and sex and alcohol, and we need to talk to them about AI. Own your own fluency, your families, your teams, your organizations. Prepare for business model disruption. What I mean by this is don't freak out about it. Just do some scenario planning. Maybe it's the start of next year. Just put a team in a room or on Zoom for a couple hours and talk about what would you do if someone did this, meaning a competitor or a client. If a client called and said, we want to pre-negotiate, we'll sign a multi-year agreement, but we'd like to pre-negotiate our 5 or 10% reduction in the cost of our services for the next 3 years, how would you react? Be ready for that conversation. Or if one of your competitors did offer a better or different business model, meaning more client-friendly, that looks riskier to offer to clients, but of course clients like those models, how would you react? So prepare means I think about it. Don't get caught flat-footed, especially if a client calls. Put your best and brightest on it. Of course, you might need consultants to kickstart this transformation and to make this change happen. But really, I think this is going to be done by your team. Make your plan to become a super company. It doesn't have to be tomorrow, but know these companies are different. They behave differently. They're not having to adopt AI. They start with AI from day one, or at least most of them do. So begin to think about how you could become a super company. And then finally, don't get distracted when one or more of these bubbles burst. I think that's a moment when you actually put your head down and build. Of course, we all know the Amazon example. When the dot-com and e-commerce bubble burst, they struggled for sure for a couple of years and then kept investing and for 10 years stole market share from others who basically got distracted. Okay, final thoughts. Wall Street, circa 2005. This is UBS's trading floor in Stamford, Connecticut. 1,600 traders, just before the financial crisis of 2007 and 8. This is today. It's Wall Street today. Office Girls. I'm old enough to remember that movie. I'm not sure I ever saw it, but I remember it. And today, listen, we're not going back. Previous workplace changes have taken a while. This will happen faster. Think of those images you just saw. I think that's the scale of what's about to happen, if you will, in terms of knowledge work and the change coming to knowledge workplaces and forces. This is a great moment to be a leader, which obviously you all are or are investing in yourself to become one, because you're showing up this morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you are, to help figure this out, to think about it, to reflect on it, to chat about it. Leaders are made in these moments. This is a great time if you're willing to step up and lead. Every organization needs many leaders that can help figure out what's about to happen to knowledge work. And finally, stay human. Remember what's really important. This is not a deep fake. Yes, our older son is taller, smarter, and more handsome than I am. And that's Zoe. That was taken on Saturday. She's in that photo, less than 12 hours old. This is what matters. Okay, guys, so here's my big takeaway for AI as we end 2025 and head into 2026. Listen, there are AI bubbles and some of them will burst, but the capabilities bubble, I don't think is bursting next year. That means all the major AIs are going to get better, more powerful, and they're going to be more useful than just holiday menu planning or workout and diet regimes. They're really going to help us get our jobs done and free up meaningful time in terms of our average work week. And I want you to be able to take advantage of those AIs to do that. So you can decide if you want to either work harder and get promoted faster or take a yoga class, walk the dog, or make dinner for your kids. That's your call. But these AIs are going to help you free up that time. And that should be our focus in 2026. So happy New Year. And let's make next year the year we really get value from AI at work, not just at home. Next episode, we'll be talking with Clara Zhao, a venture partner at GSV, Global Silicon Valley, a venture fund that invests in educational companies and technologies. And by the way, an investor in Section AI. Not that we're an education company anymore. That's because we pivoted, which what every good entrepreneur does. Claire's going to tell us about how AI can help our kids not just cheat on their homework and how schools and parents can help kids use these tools in more effective ways. As always, you can find me at gregshove.com. And if you're there, sign up for my newsletter, AI True Serum. And if you got a second right now, leave us a rating or review. Listen, don't grade us too harshly. We're only about 4 or 5 episodes in. Listen, I commit to do this at least for a full year. We're going to get great guests. I've got a great team helping me out, including our producer, Julian Weller. Keep checking in. This podcast is getting better and better. See you in 2026.